You know what's screwing you up? You think you need confidence. You're walking around trying to feel confident, trying to pump yourself up, telling yourself affirmations in the mirror. And you know what? You're chasing the wrong damn thing. Because confidence, it comes and goes. But self-acceptance, that's the foundation that never cracks. Let me show you why you've been focusing on the wrong goal this entire time. Here's what's happening right now. You're stuck in this cycle where you feel good about yourself when things go well, and you feel like garbage when they don't. Your self-worth is riding a roller coaster based on your performance, other people's opinions, whether you got that job or that date or that Instagram like. And you've been told the solution is confidence. Read this book. Do this exercise. Fake it till you make it. But here's the problem. Confidence is conditional. It depends on succeeding. And what happens when you inevitably fail at something? I'm going to show you something different. Something I developed working with thousands of people over decades. It's the difference between confidence, which is useful but fragile, and self-acceptance, which is unshakable. By the end of this, you're going to understand why chasing confidence is keeping you anxious. You're going to learn how to accept yourself unconditionally, not because you're perfect, but because you're human. And you're going to walk away with a completely different foundation for your life. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't affirmations. This is rational, practical, and actually works. So let's get into it. First, we need to talk about what confidence actually is and why it keeps failing you. Because most people don't understand this. They think confidence is this magical quality you either have or you don't. That's wrong. Confidence is situational. It's performance-based. Confidence is saying, I can do this thing. It comes from competence, from past success, from preparation. But here's the kicker. It's completely dependent on external conditions. You feel confident when you're good at something. But the second you step into unfamiliar territory, poof, it's gone. Think about it this way. You might feel confident giving presentations at work. You've done it 100 times. You know your stuff. You can walk in there and deliver. But then someone asks you to go on a date with someone you really like, and suddenly you're terrified. Where did all that confidence go? Or maybe you're confident at your job, but anxious as hell at the gym. Confident cooking dinner, but a nervous wreck at karaoke. Why? Because confidence is domain-specific. It only exists in areas where you have evidence that you can perform well. When you don't have that evidence in a new situation, confidence evaporates like water in the desert. And here's where it gets really problematic. When your self-worth depends on being confident, you avoid anything that might shake that confidence. You stick to what you know. You don't take risks. You turn down opportunities because you're not sure you'll succeed. Because failure would destroy your sense of self. You become trapped in this tiny comfort zone, and you tell yourself it's fine. You're just being realistic. No, you're being scared. You're protecting your fragile confidence instead of growing as a person. This creates what I call the performance addiction. You become addicted to winning, to succeeding, to proving yourself. Every interaction becomes a test. Every project becomes a referendum on your worth. And this makes you incredibly vulnerable to anxiety and depression when things don't go your way. Because they won't always go your way. That's life. You're going to fail sometimes. You're going to get rejected. You're going to screw things up. And if your entire sense of self is built on confidence that requires success, you're going to fall apart. Now, a lot of people try to solve this with affirmations. Stand in front of a mirror and say, I'm confident. I've got this. I'm amazing. And you know what? It doesn't work. You can't think your way into confidence without evidence. Your brain is smarter than that. When you tell yourself you're confident about giving a speech, but you've never given a speech before, your brain goes, nice try, but we both know you're full of it. You can't lie to yourself into confidence. It requires actual competence and experience. Let me give you a real example. I worked with a tennis player years ago. On the court, she was incredibly confident. She'd won tournaments. She knew her game. She could execute. But off the court, terrified of public speaking, couldn't do it. And she'd ask me, why am I so confident in tennis, but so anxious about speaking? And I'd tell her, because your confidence doesn't transfer. It's not a general quality. It's built on specific skills and experience. When you step off that tennis court, You're back to being anxious because you don't have the evidence that you can succeed at speaking. So if confidence is this fragile, what's the alternative? What actually makes you solid no matter what happens? That's where self-acceptance comes in. And it's completely different from confidence. Most people have never even heard of it, or if they have, they misunderstand it completely. Self-acceptance is unconditional. It's not, I accept myself because I'm good at things. It's not, I accept myself when I succeed. It's, I accept myself, period. Because I'm a human being, and human beings have value simply by existing. Now, this is radical, and most people resist it because they think it means settling for mediocrity. It doesn't. Let me explain. Here's the core principle you need to understand. You are not your behavior. This is crucial. Your actions can be good or bad, smart or stupid, successful or failed. But you, the person, are neither good nor bad. You're a complex, ever-changing human being. You could do badly without being bad. You can fail at something without being a failure. Most people don't make this distinction. They do something wrong and immediately conclude, I'm wrong. I'm defective. I'm worthless. That's irrational thinking. Let me break this down. When you fail at something, that's one behavior at one point in time. But you've performed millions of behaviors in your life. Some good, some bad, most somewhere in between. So how can you rate your entire self based on one action? You can't. It's illogical. But people do it all the time. They generalize from one failure to their entire identity. I failed the test, therefore I'm stupid. I got rejected, therefore I'm unlovable. I made a mistake at work, therefore I'm incompetent. See the irrational leap? Unconditional self-acceptance means you stop doing that. You stop rating your entire self. You rate your behaviors, sure. That presentation was poorly prepared. That decision was unwise. That comment was unkind. But you don't extend that rating to your whole person. You're not a bad person for doing something bad. You're a person who did something bad. Now here's where people get confused. They think unconditional means you accept everything about yourself and never try to change. That's not what I'm saying. Unconditional means your acceptance of yourself as a person doesn't depend on your behavior. You can accept yourself and still want to improve your behavior. In fact, you're more likely to improve when you accept yourself. Why? Because you're not defending your ego anymore. Think about it. When you tie your worth to your performance, you can't admit mistakes. Admitting a mistake means admitting you're worthless. So you defend, you rationalize, you blame others. You can't learn. But when you accept yourself unconditionally, you can look at your mistakes clearly. Yeah, I screwed that up. That's bad behavior. I'm still an okay person, and I could do better next time. That's growth. Most people walk around rating themselves. I'm a 7 out of 10. I'm better than him, but worse than her. This is what I call the self-rating trap. And it's completely irrational when you think about it. You're trying to rate billions of traits, thoughts, and actions across your entire lifetime with one number or one label. Good person, bad person, winner, loser. It's absurd. You can't reduce a complex human being to a single rating. But we do it constantly because we were taught to do it as kids. Gold stars, grades, good boy, bad girl. We learn to equate our worth with our performance. Here's the paradox that blows people's minds. When you accept yourself unconditionally, you're actually more likely to improve. Not less. More. I've seen this with thousands of clients. The perfectionists who couldn't start projects because they needed to be confident they'd do them perfectly. Once they accepted themselves as fallible humans who would make mistakes, they could actually begin. They could try things. They could learn. Because failure wasn't an identity crisis anymore. It was just feedback. Now, you might be thinking, Albert, if I accept myself no matter what, won't I just become lazy? Won't I stop trying? This is the biggest misconception, and we need to tackle it head on because it's what stops people from embracing self-acceptance. People think they need to beat themselves up to improve. I need to be hard on myself. I need to push myself. If I accept my flaws, I'll never change them. This is backwards. Completely backwards. Self-hatred is a terrible motivator. It might work in the short term, but it creates avoidance, defensiveness, and eventually giving up. Self-acceptance creates sustainable motivation because you're improving from a place of worth, not worthlessness. There are two types of motivation: fear-based motivation and growth-based motivation. Fear-based says, I must improve or I'm worthless. I have to succeed or I'm a failure. I need to be better than others or I'm garbage. This creates anxiety, depression, and fragility. You're running away from something, your own supposed worthlessness, rather than running towards something you want. Growth-based motivation says, I accept myself as I am, and I want to develop my skills. I prefer to succeed, but I don't need to in order to be worthwhile. I'm a person who's learning and growing. This is sustainable. It doesn't collapse when you hit obstacles. It doesn't require you to be perfect to feel okay about yourself. Here's another crucial distinction. Accepting doesn't mean approving. I can accept that I'm a person who sometimes procrastinates without approving of procrastination. I can work to change the behavior without damning my entire self for having that behavior. Most people don't make this distinction. They think accepting means saying it's fine, it's good, I shouldn't change it. No, accepting means acknowledging reality without adding condemnation. Yes, I procrastinate. That's a behavior I have. It's not helpful. I want to change it. But I'm not a worthless piece of garbage for procrastinating. I'm a person with a habit I want to break. Let me tell you what happens when you don't accept yourself. You create a self-fulfilling prophecy. You tell yourself, I'm a failure. Now you feel anxious and depressed. When you feel anxious and depressed, you're less likely to try new things. You avoid challenges. You give up easily. And then you fail more, which confirms your belief that you're a failure. It's a vicious cycle. The belief creates the result that reinforces the belief. But when you accept yourself, the cycle reverses. I'm a fallible human who sometimes fails. You feel calmer. You're more willing to take risks because failure doesn't threaten your core worth. You try more things. You persist longer. You learn from mistakes instead of being destroyed by them. And you succeed more often, not because you need to, but because you're free to try without the paralyzing fear of what failure means about you. Failure becomes feedback instead of identity. When you accept yourself, failure is just information. That didn't work. What can I learn? What should I try differently? It's like a scientist running an experiment. When the experiment fails, the scientist doesn't go, I'm worthless. I should quit science. They go, interesting. That approach didn't work. What should I try next? That's self-acceptance in action. You're separating the results of your actions from your worth as a person. All right, so you're starting to see the difference between confidence and self-acceptance. But how do you actually build this self-acceptance? Because it's not just a switch you flip. You've spent years, maybe decades, tying your worth to your performance. You can't just decide to stop doing that and poof, it's done. There's a process, and that's what I want to give you now. This is the core of what I developed, rational emotive behavior therapy. When you fail or get rejected or mess something up, you think it's the event that makes you feel bad. It's not. It's your belief about the event. Let me show you what I mean. I call this the ABC model. A is the activating event. B is your belief about that event. And C is the consequence, your emotional reaction. Most people think it causes C. The event causes the emotion. I got rejected, so I feel depressed. I failed the test, so I feel worthless. But that's not how it works. It's not A that causes C. It's B. Your belief, A, the activating event. You get rejected for a job you applied for. Now, what's your belief about that? If your belief is irrational, it might be, I must succeed at everything. If I fail, I'm worthless. I needed that job to prove I'm competent. Now I'm a failure. That belief creates C, the consequence. Depression, anxiety, self-hatred. You feel terrible. But what if your belief was different? What if your belief was rational? I wanted that job, but I don't need it to be worthwhile. I'm a fallible human who won't get everything I want. It's disappointing, but it doesn't make me worthless. With that belief, C is different. You feel disappointed, sure. Maybe frustrated, but not devastated. Not depressed. Not self-hating. Same event. Different belief. Different emotion. This is huge because it means you have control over how you feel, not complete control. You can't just decide to feel happy when terrible things happen, but significant control. You can change your beliefs and your emotions will follow. This is how you build self-acceptance. You identify your irrational beliefs, and you dispute them. There are three major musts that create most of our emotional disturbance. First, I must perform well and be approved by others, or I'm no good. Second, others must treat me fairly and kindly, or they're horrible. Third, life must be easy and give me what I want, or it's awful. These must create massive anxiety, depression, and rage. Why? Because you're demanding that reality be different from what it is. And reality doesn't care about your demands. Let's focus on that first, must, because it's most relevant to self-acceptance. I must perform well and be approved by others. Where's the evidence for that must? Where is it written in the universe that you must succeed? You prefer to succeed. You want to succeed. Success is better than failure. But you don't need to succeed to be a worthwhile person. That's the irrational leap. When you catch yourself thinking this way, you dispute it. You ask yourself questions. Why must I succeed? Where's the law of the universe that says I have to? What makes me worthless if I fail? Am I confusing my behavior with my entire self? Is one failure really proof that I'm completely defective? When you logically examine these beliefs, they fall apart. They're not based on evidence. They're based on demands you're making on reality. The rational alternative goes like this. I strongly prefer to succeed. I want to do well. It's better if things go my way. But I don't have to succeed to be acceptable. When I fail, it's bad and inconvenient, but I'm still a person with worth. My value as a human being doesn't depend on my achievements. That's a rational belief, and it creates self-acceptance. Let me give you a real example from my practice. I worked with a woman who believed, I must be loved by everyone, or I'm unlovable. Every time someone didn't like her, she'd fall apart. She'd obsess over it. What did I do wrong? Why don't they like me? I'm such a terrible person. And I'd ask her, why must everyone love you? She'd say, well, if people don't like me, it means there's something wrong with me. And I'd say, where's the evidence for that? Is anyone loved by everyone? She'd admit, no, of course not. Even the most popular people have people who dislike them. So I continue. Does being disliked by some people actually make you unlovable, or does it just make you human? She'd think about it. I guess it just makes me human. Exactly. You're demanding universal approval, and that's not realistic. Some people won't like you, no matter what you do. That's not a reflection of your worth. That's just reality. People have different tastes, different values, different preferences. You could be a perfectly fine person and still have people who don't like you. Once she understood this, she started disputing her irrational belief every time it came up. Someone doesn't like me. That's disappointing. I prefer to be liked. But I don't need universal approval to be worthwhile. I'm a fallible human being, and some people won't connect with me. That's okay. And over time, the emotional devastation decreased. She still preferred to be liked, but she wasn't destroyed when she wasn't. Now, this takes practice. Your brain has been running these irrational beliefs for years, maybe decades. You're not going to change them overnight. So let me give you some specific exercises to build unconditional self-acceptance. These are practical things you can do starting today. First, exercise shame attacking. This is one of my favorites. You do something mildly embarrassing on purpose, not to humiliate yourself, but to prove that you can survive social disapproval. Wear mismatched socks to work. Ask a silly question in public. Sing off-key in a public place. Whatever feels embarrassing but isn't actually harmful. The point is to expose yourself to disapproval and discover that it doesn't kill you. You're training your brain that other people's opinions don't determine your worth. I had a client who was terrified of looking foolish. So I had him go to a grocery store and ask where they kept the fresh elephant meat. The employees looked at him like he was crazy. He felt embarrassed, but he survived. And afterwards, he realized that was uncomfortable, but I'm okay. Their disapproval didn't destroy me. I'm still a person with worth. That realization is powerful. It weakens the belief that you need approval to be acceptable. Second, exercise. Rational self-acceptance affirmations. Not the fluffy kind. Not, I'm perfect and amazing and everyone loves me. That's delusional. Instead, I accept myself unconditionally, whether I succeed or fail, whether others approve or disapprove. I am a fallible human being, and that's okay. Repeat this, especially when you mess up. When you make a mistake, instead of beating yourself up, say this affirmation. Remind yourself that your worth isn't on trial. Third exercise, the daily failure log. Each day, write down something you did badly. Then practice accepting yourself anyway. I snapped at my partner. That was unkind behavior, but I'm not a horrible person. I'm a person who sometimes acts unkindly and could do better tomorrow. The point is to practice separating your behavior from yourself. The behavior was bad. You're not bad. You're a complex human who did something you regret. Fourth exercise, and this is crucial, stop evaluating your entire self. When you evaluate your day, judge specific actions. That presentation went well. That email was poorly written. I handled that conversation skillfully. I procrastinated on that project. But never judge your entire self. Don't say, I'm great. Don't say, I'm terrible. You're always just a person with mixed results. Some good behaviors, some bad behaviors, most somewhere in between. I want you to catch yourself every time you make a global self-rating. I'm such an idiot. Stop. Rephrase. I did something foolish. I'm a failure. Stop. I failed at this task. I'm amazing. Stop. I did something well. These might seem like small changes, but they're not. They're retraining your brain to stop equating your behavior with your identity. Now, even when you understand all this intellectually, there are going to be times when your emotions hijack you, when you fall back into self-damning, when you do something wrong and immediately think, I'm worthless. This doesn't mean you've failed at self-acceptance. It means you're human. The key is catching it quickly and disputing it, not beating yourself up for beating yourself up. When you notice yourself damning yourself, first, recognize the pattern. I'm catching myself thinking I'm worthless because I made a mistake. That's the old irrational belief. It's not true. Just naming it helps. You're creating distance between you and the thought. Second, don't compound it. The worst thing you can do is damn yourself for damning yourself. I'm such an idiot for falling back into this pattern. I should know better by now. No, stop. You're a person who's learning a new skill and sometimes forgets. That's completely normal. That's how learning works. You don't beat yourself up for occasionally forgetting. You just notice and correct. Third, return to the rational belief. Actively remind yourself, I did something badly. That doesn't make me bad. I'm a complex human with thousands of traits and actions. This one mistake doesn't define my entire worth. I can learn from this and do better next time. Say this out loud if you need to. Make it concrete. Fourth, learn from the trigger. What triggered the self-damning? Was it rejection? Failure? Criticism? Understanding your triggers helps you prepare rational responses for next time. If you know that criticism triggers your I'm worthless belief, you can prepare in advance. When someone criticizes me, I'll remind myself that their criticism is about my behavior, not my entire self. I can take the feedback without taking it as proof I'm defective. Think of it like learning to ride a bike. You fall off. You don't conclude you're a terrible person who can't ride bikes. You get back on. You keep practicing. Same with self-acceptance. You slip into old thinking patterns. You notice. You correct. You continue. The slips become less frequent over time. The recovery becomes faster. But you'll never be perfect at it because you're not perfect at anything. You're a fallible human being. And that's exactly why you need self-acceptance in the first place. All right, let's bring this all together. Here's what we've covered today. Confidence is useful, but it's fragile. It depends on your performance, other people's approval, external conditions. And when those things change, which they always do, your confidence crumbles. It's domain-specific. It's situational. It's unreliable as a foundation for your sense of self. Self-acceptance is different. It's unconditional. It's the decision to stop rating your entire self and instead recognize that you're a fallible, complex human being whose worth doesn't depend on achievements or others' opinions. You could do badly without being bad. You can fail without being a failure. This isn't just feel-good nonsense. This is rational. This is logical. This is based on the reality of what you are, a person, not a performance. And this doesn't make you lazy. It actually makes you braver. Because when you're not terrified of failure destroying your worth, you can take more risks. You can try more things. You can admit mistakes and learn from them. You can recover faster when things go wrong. You're not wasting energy defending your ego or avoiding situations that might threaten your confidence. You build self-acceptance through the ABC model, recognizing that it's not events that disturb you, but your irrational beliefs about those events. The belief that you must succeed or you're worthless. The belief that you need approval to be acceptable. The belief that your behavior equals your identity. These beliefs create emotional disturbance. Disputing them creates self-acceptance, and you practice it through specific exercises. Shame attacking to prove you can survive disapproval. Rational affirmations to remind yourself of your unconditional worth. The daily failure log to separate behavior from self. And stopping all global self-ratings. These aren't just ideas. These are actions you take, skills you build. This is how you change. When you slip back, and you catch it. You don't compound it by damning yourself for damning yourself. You return to the rational belief. You learn from the trigger, and you keep going. Because this is a practice, not a destination. You're never going to be perfect at self-acceptance because perfection doesn't exist. But you can get significantly better. And that makes all the difference in how you experience your life. Here's what I want you to do today. Think of one thing you've been avoiding because you're not confident you'll do it well. Maybe it's applying for a job. Maybe it's asking someone out. Maybe it's starting that project. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation. Whatever it is, I want you to do it anyway. Not because you're confident, but because you accept yourself whether you succeed or fail. Go into it with this mindset. I'm going to try this. I might succeed. I might fail. Either way, I'm still a worthwhile person. My worth doesn't depend on the outcome. I prefer to succeed, but I don't need to. And if I fail, I'll learn something and try again or try something else. That's self-acceptance in action. Try it. See what happens. Now, if you found this helpful, there's something else you need to understand. Because self-acceptance is powerful, but there's another belief pattern that sabotages people even more. It's called awfulizing. It's when you turn every problem into a catastrophe in your mind. If I fail this test, my life is over. If they reject me, it's the end of the world. If I lose this job, I'll be ruined forever. This awfulizing creates massive anxiety and prevents you from handling normal life challenges rationally. I got another video where I break down exactly how awfulizing works and how to stop doing it. Because once you combine self-acceptance with stopping catastrophic thinking, you become emotionally resilient in a way most people never achieve. You can handle setbacks without falling apart. You can face challenges without paralyzing anxiety. You can live your life without being controlled by irrational fears. Click on that video right now. It's the next piece of the puzzle, and you're going to want this. I'll see you there.